I'm very honored to be here with the young people with full of energy and high-spirited. And in fact, I am going to talk about taking a rest rather than taking an action. I'm an action researcher, but in Korea now, the youth unemployment rate is about 22%. And 80% of high school graduates go to college. Then college tuition is very, very high, so their parents have to work very hard. And in a way, Korean young people are not happy at all. So today we hear so much about these optimistic ideas, and we are telling you can do. That's what I have been telling my young people 10 years ago, and now I cannot say it. I don't tell them you can do. Maybe we can do. So I'll tell you about what had been happened in South Korea, Seoul, a small place where I'm involved in Haja Center, and through that small experiment, you can understand probably the predicament of young people in late modern society. So I put, what are you? I, me generation, or we generation. I generation means I can do. You can change the world. Me generation, in a way you are the product of consumer society, which yesterday Chandran talked about. Was it yesterday? Day before yesterday at the opening speech. So from I can do, or me, consumer subject, can we be we generation for what? For community economy, but for a better world. What is the better world we have to ask? So Haja Center was founded in 1999, actually, when Korean young people are full of spirit. They had so many things they want to do. They want to be filmmakers. They want to be rock singers. They want to be web designers. They want to be really fancy fashion designers. And then school prohibited so severely. So they really wanted to have a platform. So I, as an action researcher, I was doing a research on these school dropouts. And there were so many, not so many in terms of number, but many young people decide to quit school and learn on their own. So we provided a platform for them to do what they do. So Haja means let's do in Korean. So we do what we want, or we do with the people who have something to do. So in English, I call Youth Factory for Alternative Culture. And then we had this 1997 Asian financial crisis at the time. And especially young people really felt that we cannot rely on the adults, the established system. So they were really eager to change the system through their effort and want to create a new culture industry, creative industry, and also come up with how to solve all those problems of society. You are familiar with the Fordism, right? As production. And students knew, or young people knew, that Korea is no longer in the stage of mass production. It's more of post-Fordism, more of different, moving into the culture industry and creative industry and many other healing industry, maybe. So, are you familiar with this image? You all know that, right? It's Pink Floyd's The Wall. So everybody getting a same education. Everybody walk in one direction. And Korean young people in 1990s, they refused to do this. So they were demanding that they want to have their free hairstyle, they want to have their own cultural platform for activities. So we have cultural center. Seoul city government is paying all this money, and Yonsei University, which I'm affiliated with, were organizing all those activities. Actually, we just provided a platform for young people to come. We call it temporary autonomous zone. For young people, it's autonomous zone. They can do whatever they want. And eventually, we hope that will create alternative public space, alternative public schools. So there are so many young people who were so cool, who were experimental and very creative. So we played, and also we keep saying learning should be playful, learning should be enjoyable. And young people at Haja Center, they really enjoyed their learning with a passion. And we emphasize active learning, which we have been emphasized all the time at this forum, and self-directed learning. You have to be motivated, and you can direct yourself. And so those young people at Haja were very different from others, and they were eager to make a difference, and they were very distinctive. So in fact, the students at Haja Center are not from very affluent family, but they were so cool and charming with their dress and their creativity. Whenever the city officials come, they say, why do you give so much good opportunity for the kids from upper class? So we had these creative cultural studios, and young people were very happy. But at late, 2000, I found the students are changing. That many students are so eager to do something new. They rather want to stay more safely. And when we ask, what do you want to do? They say, not particularly. They just don't want to be out in school where are very hostile or violent or pushing them so much to be competitive. So in a way, they were looking for shelter from the heartless world, from the hyper-competitive world. So we were kind of puzzled at a step, but what can we do? The world, in a way, the society is changing, and we have to figure out what we should do with the different young people. So in the 1990s, we keep saying youth are the hope of the future, and they will make Korean economy flourish. And the young people were angry and very creative and spoke out, actually. But now we call that new generation. But now we are having some kind of generation. Some people may call that G generation, global generation. They have to compete globally. But I call them S generation because they try so hard to accumulate spec, means kind of getting all kinds of qualifications of English test scores and GPA. And they are, in a way, very scared because of job. Even if you graduate elite university, it's hard to get a job, especially the jobs you want to get into. And they feel very sorry about to their parents, because as I said, their parents pay so much money for their kids. And they know they cannot pay back the debts, they said, because tuition is high, and they can borrow money from the bank, or that will be hard to pay back, right? So in a way, it's a very sorry generation. So they, very smart young people, call themselves loser, or the superfluous. And they are in isolation, precarious sociality. So in a way, they live in as floating individuals in care deficit world. So now we are asking creativity for what? Actually, Uffe Elbeck yesterday talked about 3 crises. So now the young people have a crisis of motivation, crisis of empathy, crisis of relationship. They don't have a person to talk to about what they are fearful about. Okay? They have to somehow overcome, they feel, on their own. So they don't have friend. Only mother is the friend. So mother cannot be a good friend, after all, you have to know that. And crisis of system. You know, the school that is not really working. Even if you graduate the top class university, you may not get a job. And crisis of resources, which again, the Chandra has been mentioned. So in Korea, we now all know the growth doesn't do any good, the growth in number. So we all know that jobless growth can go on. And after that, the young people are very depressed. And we had a book, just 3 very creative writers published a book called How Passion Become Exploited Labor. Okay, so passion betrays you. In a way, positivism, optimism can betray you. That's what in Korea now talk about. So why did I only have 2 minutes? So why is it happening? It's very compressed modernity we are going through. You know, this folk tigers. And now we have this world crisis, right? We have to face the reality, not ignore. So what we do in Haja Center, we try to create a living learning community. So at one hand, we have much more alternative schools, much more alternative education track. And the other hand, we are incubating social enterprises. So Haja Production School is a school we had from the beginning, and we have all those students here, actually. And now we have road schooler. They learn through traveling. Again, this is a very small school, but we have this very lovely school. And Alchemist School is a starting up company. Young people, actually, who doesn't have an orphan, doesn't have a place to go or person to rely on, get together and set up a company. Actually, the first company was delivering the lunchbox. And they make a lunchbox too. And that business is going quite well. And second business is cupcake cafe, cupcake house. So they are making this new startup companies. And we have young chef, you know, this cooking school. And idol salon. That's people, for the school for those young people who doesn't go out of their room. We call it hikikomori in Japan, right? So we kind of induce them to come out and sing together, play some music. So that's another school. So we are having this kind of school with the support of adults, okay? Young, older adults. So they are the craftsmen. They should be very professional, right? At least in a new way, and mentors. So we have film production a social enterprise. We have brass tong, that's another brass band. So they teach music. We have Doridan. I think some of you have seen this performance group, very colorful. And we have organic farm communities of youngsters, and we call it 3 beans. And we have cooking organization, helping young chefs. And now I'm moving into more to ecology. So really kind of community economy, ecology, and sustainability is our keywords. Not creativity or do on your own, innovation. I mean, we can innovate, of course, but we need a shelter, after all, to live together, to secure somehow a very secured basic need. So, Uffe Olbeck, we talked about that we should have a best school, not in the world, but for the world. So this will be the school good for the society. And I feel that network of excellent learning communities can be a very great school, which ADA is trying to have, I believe. So what will be the principles? I think we should really have a clear eye. Existential clarity is very difficult words, right? We have to face what's going on, how the world will go. And then we have to have a courage to see that reality. And rather than passion, I think we should have compassion. We should sit down and we should say, we really have a difficult problem to solve. The solution wouldn't be that easy, but we should sit together and do something. Secondly, we should build social. Now we are also isolated individuals of one's own desire. That desire is produced by largely consumer society. It's not your desire. So you really have to ask, is this my desire? The need? And so we should build up community economy rather than free market. Okay, you should, if you are within that system, you will feel much secure and happier. So yesterday or today we will talk about Earth Day currency, right? We can have that system. That once we have different currency for community economy, we will really come up with a different world. And lastly, sustainability of resources. Haja Production School, we all like this slogan, energy shift, energy down. And my last little story that Haja Production School student like and identify with the Krikindi. I'll read. One day, a forest was burning. Creatures of the forest scrambled to escape from the forest. But a hummingbird named Krikindi carried a tiny drop using its beak to drop it to put out the fire. Other animals looked at the hummingbird and said, "What's the use of doing that?" And they laughed at it. Krikindi replied by saying, "I'm just doing what I can do." Thank you.